The grocery store was nearly silent that night, its fluorescent lights buzzing faintly above the aisles. Most of the shelves looked untouched, and the late-hour emptiness gave the place an almost hollow feeling. A young father walked slowly through the baby section, his sneakers scuffing against the tiled floor. His jeans were faded at the knees, and his jacket was fraying at the edges, evidence of years of wear. In his hands, he held a single pack of diapers, clutched tightly as if letting go might mean losing more than just baby supplies. His eyes looked tired, rimmed with sleepless nights, but there was also a kind of fragile determination in them. He glanced around the store, half expecting someone to judge him, half hoping nobody would notice his situation. The truth was heavy in his chest. This was his last dollar, and these diapers were the only thing he could buy. He had skipped dinner again, convincing himself he wasn't hungry, all to make sure his baby had what was needed. The small pack was barely enough for a few days, but he told himself it would buy him time until he figured out something more. Behind him, the sound of polished shoes clicking against the floor echoed sharply. A man in a perfectly cut suit stood a few feet away, his phone tucked into his pocket as he waited in line. He looked completely out of place here, his presence radiating power and wealth in contrast to the young father's quiet struggle. The dad shifted uncomfortably, feeling the gap between them widen with every second. He adjusted the pack of diapers in his hands, his knuckles whitening. For him, this wasn't just a late-night errand, it was survival. He stepped up to the cashier, his heart pounding, praying silently that the money in his pocket would be enough. The cashier picked up the small pack of diapers and slid it across the scanner. The sharp beep echoed louder than it should have, almost mocking in the quiet store. The young father quickly reached into his wallet, fingers trembling as he pulled out a worn dollar bill and a handful of coins that clinked onto the counter. He counted them carefully, lips moving silently as if reciting a prayer. For a moment, relief flickered across his face, he thought he had just enough. But when the screen on the register flashed the total with tax included, his stomach dropped. He was a few cents short. Just a few, but in that moment it felt like a mountain. Heat rushed to his face. He avoided the cashier's eyes, embarrassed, and glanced back at the diapers as though he were betraying his child. His voice broke when he spoke, low and strained. I'm sorry. Could I just get the smaller pack instead? He tried to force a smile, but it faltered into something fragile and heartbreaking. The cashier hesitated, unsure how to respond, her fingers hovering over the keys. The silence stretched, heavy and uncomfortable, until it felt like the entire store was watching. The father's shoulders slumped. He rubbed the back of his neck nervously, trying to keep his composure. He had been here before, having to choose less, settle for less, beg quietly for understanding. In that instant, all his sacrifices came crashing down on him. Nights without eating, endless hours at a dead-end job, and still, he couldn't afford something as basic as diapers. He whispered more to himself than anyone else, I just need to get my baby through the week. His eyes glistened, but he blinked hard, refusing to let the tears fall in front of strangers. To him, it wasn't just a few cents, it was proof of how close to the edge he really was. Before the cashier could answer, the sound of a smooth, confident voice cut through the tension. I'll take them all. The words were firm, almost commanding, and they made the young father freeze. In place. Slowly, he turned his head, his eyes meeting the man in the tailored suit who had been standing behind him. The stranger stepped forward without hesitation, pulling a sleek black credit card from his wallet as though this was the simplest decision in the world. But there was no arrogance in his tone, only a quiet certainty that carried weight. The cashier blinked, taken aback. All of them? She asked, unsure if she had heard correctly. Yes, the man repeated, his gaze steady. Every pack of diapers you have on that shelf. Ring them up. He placed the card on the counter with an ease that made the father's heart twist. Such a small gesture for him, but life-changing for someone else. The cashier nodded slowly, scanning one pack after another, the beeps filling the air like a rhythm of relief. The young father's mouth opened, but no words came. His throat felt tight, his chest heavy with disbelief. He wanted to argue, to insist he couldn't accept such generosity, but the stranger's expression silenced him. There was no pity in the man's eyes, no trace of condescension, only an odd gentleness, hidden beneath the cold polish of his expensive suit. When the bags were filled and set on the counter, the suited man picked them up himself and handed them toward the father. "No parent should have to stand here worrying if they can afford to care for their child," he said quietly. His words carried something deeper than kindness. There was experience behind them, a history he wasn't yet revealing. The father's hands shook as he accepted the bags, his voice barely a whisper. "Thank you, I don't even know what to say." For the first time that night, hope replaced the exhaustion in his eyes. Outside, the night air was cool, carrying the faint scent of rain that had fallen earlier. The street lamps cast a pale yellow glow across the nearly empty parking lot, stretching long shadows beneath the two men. The single father stood there holding the heavy bags, unsure how to process what had just happened. The man in the suit remained beside him, unusually still, his sharp silhouette softened by the dim light. For a moment, neither spoke. The father shifted awkwardly, his voice hesitant. I don't know how to thank you. You didn't have to do that." The CEO looked down at the ground, his polished shoes catching the glow from the lamps. His usual mask of confidence seemed to slip, replaced by something quieter, almost vulnerable. "I know," he said finally, his tone low. "But I wanted to." He glanced up, meeting the father's eyes. "You reminded me of my dad. He raised me alone too. I remember nights when he'd come home with nothing for himself, only food for me. He worked himself to the bone, and I hated watching him struggle. When I saw you in there, I saw him all over again." The single dad tightened his grip on the bags, his throat thick with emotion. He hadn't expected such honesty from a stranger who looked like he had everything. The man in the suit gave a small, almost bitter smile. "I've built companies, bought houses, and traveled the world, but none of it means much when you go home to silence. I never had a family of my own. Maybe that's why it matters to me to help someone who does." His voice wavered slightly, though he quickly steadied it, as if unused to exposing his heart. The young father blinked back tears, the weight of the moment pressing against him. "You didn't just buy diapers," he whispered. "You gave me a little more time, a little more hope." The CEO nodded, his expression softening. For a fleeting second, the loneliness that clung to him seemed to lift. Under that streetlight, two men from entirely different worlds stood together, bound not by wealth or poverty, but by the quiet understanding of sacrifice and love. It was a moment neither of them would ever forget.